Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Dr. John Jaquish. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting and Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you here for our Life After COVID series. And boy, do we need your help, John, because a lot of our listeners are in their middle of life and staying at home, maybe not moving as much. And as we get older, we cannot have the loss of cartilage and muscle mass. And you're just the guy to help people with that. I'm going to let you share with our audience just a little bit about your backstory before we go into your wonderful products.
I'm grateful to be here. Thanks for having me.
You betcha.
A little bit of background about me. I got into life sciences because of my mother. My mother was diagnosed with osteoporosis. She didn't want to take the medications because of the side effects, which are severe. So I said, let me look into how I can help you. Mm-hmm. And what I ended up developing was an impact emulation device. So impact is the most powerful thing that really the powerful forces that go into your body, albeit brief, they stimulate very specific things that weight training can never do. For example, as I discovered and did my literature review, and then after I invented the product, which is called OsteoStrong, these units, they emulate what like a gymnast would go through, and gymnasts have the highest level of bone density of any group of people in the world.
Now, why do they have the highest bone density? What do they do differently that other people don't do?
Impact.
Impact.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the difference between what the impact or say general weightlifting, where you just go and lift weights at the gym? What is the difference?
Great question. The minimum amount of force to go through your hip joint to stimulate any growth at all is 4.2 multiples of body weight. Do you lift 4.2 times your body weight when you go to the gym? That's what every listener needs to ask.
No.
Like, not even close. Most people can barely go beyond their body weight. Just maybe 50 pounds above their own body weight, right? I mean, like pick up a 50-pound whatever, kettlebell or dumbbells, and then try and do a squat. Like most people can't do that, let alone 4 times their body weight. So it's an interesting situation, which obviously weight training cannot address. But high impact gymnasts use 10 times their body weight at times when they land, like a dismount from the uneven bars.
Nutters, I didn't know that. Wow.
Right. So I would never tell my mother to go out for gymnastics when she was in her 70s. But I did say I'm going to build a device that gives the benefits of gymnastics without the risks. Wow. And so that was how that technology was born, and then the company started. And I want to stick a little bit towards entrepreneurship because that's your audience. So there's a lot of challenges when you're doing something that's never been done. Like if you and I were like drinking somewhere, because those are where the best ideas come from. Yeah. Right. So we're having a drink and we're like, let's revolutionize the shoelace industry. and just like we just rolled with that. How were we going to change everything? No one's going to like question the credibility of our shoelaces. No one's going to go, well, let me see the scientific research on that.
That's true.
Right. So when you're the first person to do something, especially in science, you get beat up bad. Jealous people, it's mostly jealous people who try and tear you down. Now that's in all industries. But when it comes to science, because most people are confused with even simplified science, which is why we have oversimplified science, which is oversimplified is another word for wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So most people can't even read scientific research. Like they're incapable of understanding anything about it. It's just written for people of honestly higher level of intelligence. I don't want to sound mean, but
that's why they get master degrees and doctorates, eh?
Right. And even some of the physicians that I've dealt with over the years with the bone density device and with my fitness product also, I realize they don't understand how statistics work. Let me just give you an example. If you have a study with a small sample size, let's say 24 people and 24 in the control group, and then you have a positive outcome, where you have statistical significance, which is basically it's going to work for 95% of people. 0.05 significance score is I think a lot of people don't know what that means. It just means it's like for 95 out of 100, it's going to work. And I don't know why that seems so mystifying to people. But then if you have a large sample size, like let's say 10,000 people, which like pharma studies do, and you show statistical significance, but let's say in the larger study, you had low statistical significance and super high with the other study, which is the more powerful study? It's the one with the smaller sample size, because it's harder for that study to guarantee with a 95% confidence interval that is actually true. So it's statistically tougher with a smaller sample size. Physicians don't understand this at all.
So
like,
when
I hardly meet one that knows that.
So when you brought your devices to the public, were the doctors the biggest downers on it, or is it, who was it mainly?
Yes, but it was actually pretty easy to win them over, because I showed them the ones
results.
who took the time to absorb, well, not the results, because like doctors never go by testimonial, because they don't care. Like somebody comes in and says, I reversed my whatever, I don't have my type 2 diabetes anymore. They're like, yeah, shut up, take your pills. Like they don't care, because there's all kinds of people who get duped into like, all you need is a kale smoothie and it, fixes everything in your body, which is actually super untrue. I would say kale smoothies will cause more problems than anything, but they fool themselves into thinking that something is happening when it's not. And so they're very much not interested in learning new stuff unless they're at an actual like education seminar. Right. So it's just because the information is bad typically. So what we have is a situation where it was tough to get the physician's attention, but once they would hear from their patients, they would agree to come to talk. And I flew all over the world. We're in 8 different countries of 150 clinics. And once I gave them the scientific lecture of like an hour, then and showed them the evidence, they're like, I'm going to recommend this for all of my patients. This is great. Well, all that are in the group that would be okay, that are not contraindicated. Like, you're not going to give it to somebody with a -5 T-score. So, but from an entrepreneurship standpoint, you really have to figure out like how to break through. And that was really the biggest challenge. Like and I also figured out that postmenopausal physicians listened a lot better than men did, because they're personally interested in it. Yeah, like I mean, I know when I was just a consumer, sure, but we all do it. When I was just a consumer and not a business owner, if somebody was talking about muscle growth, I would pay attention because I always like being strong. But if they were talking about eyelash extensions or like buying real estate or something like that, when I was like in college, it's just like I'm not in the market for that, so I just breeze right by it.
Well, I'm curious because a lot of people, or we've had guests come on that have become in the middle age, going through the menopause or menopause, whatever they call it, and they start to have issues. Your body does not respond the way it did in your 20s, and I've noticed a loss of bone density, cartilage a little bit, and it becomes worrisome as you get older. And now my older friends are like, oh, I got to start getting in the gym, start working out more. But it's not just working out; it's working out effectively. So share what X3 does differently to really help all people, not just people who might be starting to lose bone density.
Okay, so there's two products we're talking about. You realize that, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
the OsteoStrong's for bone density.
And the X3 doesn't do that? Okay, I thought they did as well.
No,
Okay.
not at all. It's totally different.
Okay.
However, it came from the research of OsteoStrong. So what happened is when I was collecting the data that was going to be published in a study, well, I wasn't collecting it, to be perfectly clear. I was observing the data collection, and the physicians who were participating in the study, I mean, some were participating just as test subjects, and they would say, it's crazy how much force goes through the human body. Like, yeah, it is. And they're like, how does this compare to what people use in a fitness environment? And I said, I don't really know, but I can find out. So while this data was being collected, I would just go to make sure people were using the equipment right. Because that's a big thing. Like, it's amazing how many people are so stupid they just won't read the instructions and then break a piece of equipment or whatever. Apple really has it figured out. There's no instruction book, because why? Nobody will read it. You just have to poke around and figure it out on your own. And they've made it simple enough to where even the most intelligence compromised people can somehow use it. So when I went to gather all that data, I looked at the NAIMS database, which is like a largest database of fitness and health data in the world, and 20,000 participants. And so I looked at the 20,000 participants and growing. And so I looked at what people used in fitness as far as percentage of their body weight. And then, looked at that same kind of number for the data that was being taken off of the OsteoStrong type device. It was a prototype back then, but it was like a 7-fold difference for like using your legs. Wow. I use the legs as the example because that's the most important movement for long life.
You mean
because
squats?
Hip
squats or what movement?
I mean your hip joint.
Oh, the hip joint.
Which is a lot more than just squats. So yes, like squat data. I think that's what you meant. Squat data versus the data that we apply to the legs. That's more like a squat type position in using my invention. And so when you look at how the data stacked up, even versus average people, of which the test subjects were not. They were deconditioned postmenopausal people. So, and because I wanted the largest sample sizes compared to the people, and there's not a lot of elderly people lifting, elderly, I mean, whatever, postmenopausal.
Yeah.
They're not elderly. So but they're older than the exercising population, which was on average 30, and they were on average 60. So it was comparing 30-year-olds to 60-year-olds, but it didn't matter because I imagined that they were equal and then looked at the strength of the 30-year-olds in their outputs and then looked at the strength of the 60-year-olds. The 60-year-olds were dealing with weight 7 times greater than the 30-year-olds.
Wow.
So, right. So now they weren't dealing with it in the same way, but they were getting much greater benefit, a 7-fold greater benefit to bone, because the people in the gym were using 1.3, depending on advanced versus beginner, 1.3 to 1.53 multiples of their body weight. But the people using my invention were using 7 times their body weight. Oh no, I'm sorry. They were using 8 and 9. And so then when you average that down, how many, the factoring of how large the number is versus the weaker range. So like at a squat, like the bottom of the squat where your legs are parallel with the ground, that's your weakest part. And then when you come up and your muscles are still engaged, so 120-degree angle behind the knee joint, that's your most powerful position. That's if you're going to jump, you drop down a little bit.
Yeah.
That drop down position is the top. of the, you know, the weightlifting movement. I mean, most people lock their knees because they don't understand anything about exercise, but you know, you shouldn't really do that unless you're training for something specific that requires you to lock your knee out, like you're a sprinter.
Okay.
Right.
Wow.
Right. But they also use very different protocols and different. I got to give that caveat because somebody will be like, well, what about sprinters? Yeah, I got to. I mean, yeah. Well, though, what, 1 in 10,000 people that sprint past the age of 40?
Wow.
Sure.
So tell me, this is so much, they can lift so much more their body weight and it's safe. That's just amazing to me.
It has to do with the isolated position. So you isolate the position, a human would naturally absorb impact. Like the 120-degree angle I just talked about. If you were to jump off of a chair and land, that's the position you land in. That's how you would absorb the greatest amount of force. Your central nervous system already knows this, but science didn't know it until very recently. And so I take that data and I look at it and can determine what the human body can handle. Now, also all the force with these devices is self-created. Now, I don't want to confuse anybody. I'm still talking about the bone density device.
Yes.
Not the strength training one. So it just becomes very effective when you load the body like that, because many people, their first time, get over 4.2 multiples of body weight. And then there are people who build up to 10 times their body weight.
Wow.
I'm at like 15 times my body weight.
Well, you look in amazing shape, and I was.
Well, I am a bad example. Like nobody's worried I'm going to break a bone. Yeah.
Now, Osteogenic. How do they get both products? Is it called Osteogenic? Is how you call the first product?
OsteoStrong.
OsteoStrong.
And it applies osteogenic loading or impact emulation. I came up with impact emulation a little later because I thought that would be more simple for people, because at least they know what impact is. Osteogenic loading, they didn't understand either word. I mean, physicians did, but regular people didn't. You know, and usually you throw one complex word at regular people and they're like, oh, I'm done. I don't know what all the science stuff is.
Sounds very sciencey.
It's amazing. It's amazing how many quitters there are out there. It's like you couldn't look up one word, really.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. But yeah, it's pathetic. But yeah, so impact emulation was just a better term. And they know what both words mean, actually. So yeah.
So I'm guessing maybe the both of them are good for any age group, probably, but it's better to get started earlier than later. How do people get started? Is it hard to use either of the equipment?
No.
OsteoStrong?
No, they're pretty easy. I would say like somebody elderly may have a little bit of trouble. I'm talking, 85 plus, have a little trouble with the muscular growth device.
Yeah.
Which is so powerful. Like if somebody wants to change the shape of their body, this is the most powerful thing they could ever have. It's safe. You won't injure yourself. Very protective of joints. But with OsteoStrong, increasing bone density is very low risk. The load is self-created. So your own central nervous system is the regulator. Because no one is ever going to be smart enough to create some sort of computerized algorithm to be smarter than your own senses.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's one of the problems with, like when I see smartwatches and what they measure and what they're trying to do and the recommendations they're trying to give, like they're trying to overcomplicate something that if you just look at how the body responds.
Interesting.
In a different way, like, if we had a way to monitor our ghrelin and leptin. Like if we had, the back of the Apple Watch has basically cameras that are trying to look through your skin and find stuff out. But they're really interested in like heart rate and and I love how many steps did you take?
Yeah.
Which no physician cared about ever until some $500 monitors came out and became like the thing everybody talked about. We've had manual pedometers, which just have a little spring inside and would click every step you took. We've had those since the 1960s. Nobody ever cared. Nobody.
Wow. Until it became a gadget.
Yeah, right. And like, so everybody's looking at how many steps they take, and then, some guy like Anthony Fauci is saying, it's the greatest thing in the world, and yeah.
Well,
like,
one
okay,
thing,
because
because you
right.
said so, yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
But what I like that you said there is that my trainer in the gym had said when I take a workout class, we're taking a strength training. He keeps saying mind-body connection, and I think that's one thing. Is like you were just mentioning, your body, if you're paying attention to it, knows what it can
Your
handle.
body will tell you so much.
Yeah,
and that's true of hunger. That's just like, if you change your diet and all of a sudden your acne goes away, right?
Yeah.
Like, what happened? Obviously something positive. You're not supposed to have acne as an adult. So, what'd you do differently?
Yeah.
Just simple examples. Somebody who has anxiety all of a sudden, but they also just picked up a nicotine vape pen and they started using that constantly to suppress their appetite because they read an article about how great nicotine is. And I got to be careful here because I have pushed out like social media posts about how nicotine can suppress the appetite. It's a fact.
Yeah.
But when people hear that, it's like, cool, I'll start
I'll go
using
get some
nicotine.
cigarettes. No.
Well, I tell them, not cigarettes, because the burning material in your lungs is way more damaging than the nicotine. But nicotine is also the most addictive thing.
Really?
It's the most addictive substance in the world. Yeah.
Wow, that I didn't know. Well, that would attribute why it's so hard for people to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised it's more addictive than caffeine.
Or heroin.
Or yeah.
Apparently, of the articles I've read, it's more addictive than heroin.
Wow.
Which blew me away because while I was playing with it and looking to how do I write about this objectively, I'm not going to advertise for it, and I'm going to say the bads, but is there a clinical application that can help people who are just beginning fasting? I'm a fan of that. So like every day of my life, I eat one meal a day.
Wow.
And then sometimes I'll go 5 days with no food.
And you can work out with that? I mean, does it impinge on your workouts or anything?
Well, I know what I'm doing. So there's some things you got to monitor, which I wouldn't just tell somebody to go out and do that cold. And then sometimes I'll do like 48-hour dry fasts where I don't have any water either. Yeah. Well, it's people have been doing that for religious reasons for thousands of years and nobody ever got sick from it. And there's also a ton of clinical literature, but like I love my general practitioner because he is like total Western medicine. It's like, if it's not in, the New England Journal, it doesn't exist. And often I show him New England Journal articles because he just says that, but doesn't actually read the journal. And, I'll just really sort of behind on stuff, but they can't keep up on everything. Yeah. They got to practice. When they're not seeing patients, they don't make money.
Yeah. And plus with the insurance, all the paperwork I've heard, I mean, my doctor growing up said, it's really a never ending job. If you want to be up on everything, it's like, you got to continually be studying, going to conferences. It's a big job. It's not just see patients, go home, hang with your family. It's an ongoing thing. But I know our audience, because a lot of them being older, are very concerned with building their muscle mass. How do they get to learn more about your products, more about you? How do they do that?
Well, so I really haven't said anything about the strength product.
No, you ain't got that yet.
I've been trying to. It's okay. Well, the bone density thing is really interesting. I mean, that's truly like a world-changing thing, right? Yeah. Right. So I understand why we keep circling back to that. But what I saw with this 7-fold difference in power between weak to stronger to impact ready range, I was like, God, like weightlifting is a waste of time. Like if this is true, and I know it is, data's right in front of me, then weightlifting is a terrible stimulus for muscle. And also, and Peter Attia says this, he's not a fan of weightlifting because he says it overloads joints and underloads muscle.
Wow.
So I had the data to make a very specific observation But he stood back and just looked at the biomechanics of the body, and he says, when we lift weights, we destroy our joints, and we really don't get much stimulus. And I do refer to the fitness industry as the most failed human endeavor of all time. And the reason I say that, well, look, go to a gym, any gym. I don't mean Venice Beach, where all the professional bodybuilders train. I mean any gym other than that. And what you will see is overweight people or really skinny people who can't put on muscle. And you can go to the Pizza Hut next door and everybody looks exactly the same. So I know people who have worked out for years and years and years, and they get nothing out of it. So why keep, and I get, of course, I'm getting beat up on. Oh, and I was going to say this earlier. I love dealing with physicians because you show them the evidence and they're like, you're right, I will prescribe this. The problem with fitness people is they don't understand anything. Like this is an industry where there are great trainers out there, but they're self-educated. The industry doesn't teach them anything. They go out and learn on their own. And I know plenty of those. In fact, a lot of those have come to me and they're like, finally, a guy who understands this, or who understands the importance of just looking at science. Here's just an example. I make no money by saying this statement because I'm not involved in cardiovascular exercise or the antithesis of, but I will say cardio is the worst way to lose body fat.
That's what I've been hearing.
There's 40 years. Well, you're hearing it because I'm the first one who started saying it. Like my book. Here's my book. You can see right at the bottom. Weightlifting is a waste of time, and so is cardio. So like, it's 40 years of research, and like seriously, people have been screwing this up for 40 years. Even with the research there, fitness industry doesn't care. They just want to sell you a membership. They don't care. And Peloton doesn't care if you're educated on the subject either. In fact, they'd probably rather miseducate you. So you go out and buy their product, which will, and it's true of all cardio, just not just Peloton. It raises your heart rate to a certain level in a sustained period of time, which upregulates cortisol. Cortisol has two things it does. It dismantles muscle mass, so you lose muscle, which is why people think they're losing weight. They're losing muscle. So they're getting weaker and having poorer posture.
Oh my gosh.
Your head's down and your shoulders are slumped forward. So you lose muscle, and it preserves body fat. So you stay as fat as possible, as long as possible. Completely idiotic to get involved in cardiovascular programs. Just so stupid. But
now tell me, why is the body doing that? Why is the body doing that? Why is it holding on to fat when you're doing cardio?
Okay, think about it. Your body will modify itself to optimize life in the environment it's in. So if you put it in an environment where you take an amount of fuel and you go a distance that challenges that amount of fuel, it does two things. It conserves. So it shrinks muscle. Oh, you also lose bone density. So you can get osteoporosis from doing cardio. Or you can accelerate the process of that dysfunction. So you lose bone, you lose muscle, and it preserves the body fat because body fat is the reserve tank. That's the energy you need after you run out of the food in your digestion so you can go further. So the body is becoming the machine you're telling it to become.
It's resetting.
By doing sustained cardio. Like your body is becoming like a Prius, like lightweight, totally energy efficient. But an energy efficient body is an ugly body. It's skinny fat. It's very much no muscle or very little muscle.
No, I don't like that.
Fat storage, cellulite all over your legs. Like you never get rid of your cellulite.
No.
Right.
I'm totally what I like. I've been really lately been attracted to as I've wanted to build more muscle mass, and I've been checking out strongmen just for fun. And I'm like, I know I can't do that because I'm way too old for that, and I'm a girl. But yeah, I'm attracted to the strength.
Oh, girls can do anything. Don't worry about that part. Right. Yeah.
But,
if they decide to train in the proper way. And X3 gets people, my fitness product, X3 gets people way down that curve because it takes the joint risk out of it. A lot of people, when they get older, they won't risk, like they know like an injury could cost them like weeks out of work.
Yeah.
And they can't afford that. Right.
Yeah.
And so, or they can't even play with their kids, or they can't get in a car. You get hurt when you're 20 and you don't have any dependents, and your work doesn't even really care if you show up because you don't do anything smart anyway. You're 20, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know how it is. So, it's just like, okay, get another 20-year-old to, flip the burgers. It's just the truth. If you're young and you're employed, it's probably nothing good.
Yeah.
So I think these points, like as they come out, I shouldn't say I'm the first guy that said this, but I think I'm one of them. I started saying it about 3 years ago, and then the rate at which I started seeing that message just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And I love it because people are actually going to get better results out of looking at a scientific analysis of their activity instead of just saying, well, it's what Tom Brady does. Because people want to follow like, the outliers or whatever.
Well,
and that,
let's say you're the audience is mainly late 30s, 40s, and 50s. They want to get started. They're doing a lot of cardio. Where do they begin to switch? I'm thinking a good spot is to go get your book and find out more about all that you offer. But where do they start?
Sure. Like people will question what I'm saying, and that's fine. You're allowed to question what I'm saying. But before criticizing me, read the book. Yeah. Learn what I'm trying to get through. And the book has it's about 1/10 of the book is kind of about X3, about the product. But ultimately it was like, I wanted to come up with the solution for strength training. And so I couldn't really avoid making it a little like promotional-ish. So just to prepare everybody for that, because that's the only criticism I really get. And that's not really a bad one. It's like, you should know about this amazing thing.
Yeah, if it's going to help people, why would you not broadcast it? No one else is going to do it.
I think the world has gotten kind of strange on like just entrepreneurs, and this is good for your audience. There's like sort of a socialist attitude that like anybody who makes money is a jerk and they're bad people. Yeah,
they only they only provide a service or product that people need, want, or desire, and then they pay you for it. How is that?
Right. You don't need. Yeah, you don't need to buy my product. If you don't like the idea, then don't buy it.
Exactly.
But I get attacked all the time for being a guy who sells a product on the internet, and I think it's because I'm on the internet they can say something negative, and my response is always the same.
Try it.
When you go to work, you go to work, you work for free. Can I call your employer and say, this guy, he's willing to do his job, but he doesn't want to be paid anymore? Because anyone who gets paid for their work is just a jerk.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't agree to that. So it's like, okay, this is my job. And I just so happen to be selling tens of thousands of units of the product all the time. I mean, we can...
And the biggest indicator of something being good for the environment is people wanting to get it, and they keep getting it. If things were bad, they wouldn't keep having demand for it.
Right. Stupid products fail.
Yeah, exactly.
This one is the fastest growing. Right. It's the fastest growing product in fitness. Wow. And my revenues versus where I was 3 years ago, like it's I mean, the thing is just, and it's, I say it's like most consumer products have a 30% return rate. We have a 1% return rate. So if it works, people keep it. Yeah. And that's why they keep it, because
that's awesome. And can they get it at Jaquish biomedical.com?
Jaquish Biomedical. Let me just give you, I have a landing page.
Oh, good.
Because everybody screws up my last name.
Yeah.
And especially the spelling. So that's not.
I was going to spell it for everyone, but that's
right.
great.
Right. Yeah. So it's just drj.com. DOCTOR, the letter J.com.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Because let's spell the whole thing. No, that's perfect. Well, I'm so grateful you came out today, because I know I'm not the only one dealing with this, and we want to go into our older years being super healthy and fit. And
Yeah.
So I really thank you for inventing this and putting it out there.
Yeah.
And thank you so
Absolutely.
much. It's
All
been
right.
awesome meeting
Thanks.
you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.